Hey, so my husband's taking the kids out, parenting, and so I actually have a little bit of peace and quiet. So I wanted to talk about my next piece, which is based off of Grimm's fairy tale, The Riddle, which is not as well known, and Disney hasn't gotten to it yet. So hopefully Disney won't get to it before I publish my book, like they did with Tangled. Which they obviously did, because they knew that my book was going to overshadow their movie. So The Riddle is this super awesome story about this princess who's really smart. And of course, as in typical princess fashion, her parents really want her to get married. But she's really smart and she really doesn't want to get married. So the story continues something like this. I am so smart, I shall set a riddle challenge, and nobody will be able to bring me a riddle I can't answer, and I shall never have to get married. Hi, I'm a random guy off the street, and I have a riddle that I'm pretty sure you cannot answer. That's absurd! You couldn't possibly have a riddle that I can't answer! Sure do! Take a look! Crap. And then clearly, chaos ensues. So I love this fairy tale so much that my next novel is actually based off of it. So it's a little different than the actual fairy tale, but the core is the same. So I decided to do my next piece off of my version of the story, but you'll be able to tell the similarities between them. I never get to wear this thing. I think I'm just going to wear it for the rest of the day. I feel like a princess. So for this piece, again, I drew it beforehand, and I drew it beforehand, and then I'm tracing over I'm actually using a picture frame as a way to have the light come through. I could go out and buy an actual light board, but I'm not that invested in this yet. Before I even started, I saw that there were kind of flaws with it, but I went with it anyway because I really wanted to see how it turned out. Some of the things I challenged myself with, because each time I want to challenge myself and say, okay, what can I do better or bigger than the last time? So for this one, I focused a lot more on having details, a lot of details. I wanted to tell a story with my illustration. So, there are a lot of little things that in my previous artworks I just didn't have. I also did some really new things, like I tried to make things look like actual wood or have more of a wood feel. So I'm going into more detail. And like I've discussed in previous videos, I've never done backgrounds before. I never really even colored. Never really colored anything. But these backgrounds are just things that I've never really done before. So one of the things I was really excited to try was I actually put a couple of windows actually in. So I wanted to see if I could make it look like a window, like there's light coming through. And then of course, this is the first time I'm using skin tones to try and create depth, which I practiced in a previous video that you're able to view if you go and sign up on my Patreon page. So it's really fun to watch me experiment with that. So those were some of the things I wanted to challenge myself with. I use a lot of different colors and layering. I tried to make her the center, the focal point. I don't plan the colors necessarily before I do it. I do limit the palette. So this time I chose blues, yellows, and browns. And I tried to just work with those. I didn't want there to be a large variety. I do use a tiny bit of red later, but I use that more of an accent. This picture is the main character in my novel. Her name is Helen, and she is based off of the princess in the story, and so she has set a riddle challenge and is now having to deal with the consequences of that. And that's kind of what I wanted to have this picture say. Oh, you saw there my Prismacolor marker sheet. So I know all the colors I have and I can do a reference to them. When I sit in an armchair, I sit with my feet tucked up, and I kind of afterwards felt like, I don't know if that's really coming across, maybe I could have done that better. So a lot of the problems that I have are just not necessarily in the coloring, but just, the plaid blanket looks bad, and also in my initial sketch, that maybe I'm not catching things in my initial sketches. Like that bench in the back, for instance, that turned out really bad. The bench itself is fine, but the angle is wrong. and then I made the letters so much smaller, so there's like, if you look at it the right way, it looks like one side of the room is like really far away, and then the door is like really massive. So there are definitely things I could tweak in my drawings before I color them. One of the things that I didn't enjoy and I feel like I could have done better is this blanket. I tried to do something different so you wouldn't think it's just part of her dress, and I never done plaid or anything like that before, so I do feel like I could have done better. But maybe if I hadn't pointed that out, nobody would have noticed, so maybe I should have just stayed quiet. But part of this for me is kind of realizing where my struggles are and fixing them, so I'm willing to acknowledge I am not a perfect artist by any means. The door also came out a little wonky, but that's more just because I inked and kind of went wonky. Also, I don't use a ton of actual measuring equipment, so it probably, I don't know, I would have drawn it wonky anyway. I'm really pleased with how the floor and the door turned out, considering I've never done wood, and I feel like when you look at it, yeah, it looks like wood. I'm really pleased with how she turned out. I mean, there are parts on her, again, like her hands seem like two different sizes, so there's a bit of proportion problems there, but I just feel like she turned out much nicer than the last character that I did, so I'm really pleased with that. And I also picked a better light source. Not a better light source, but a consistent light source. I feel like my light source was a lot more consistent, and I feel like she's just in a nice, well-lit room, but there's still like kind of a light to the side. Sometimes I forget all the things that I wanted to say in the video, and I think of it later, and that's why I get all excited. So if there's anything that you guys notice or would suggest or want me to try, go ahead and put it in the comments. I'm still growing as an artist. I did go to school. I don't know how many times I've said this stuff, so bear with me. But I did go to art school, so I learned all my color theory and things like that. I work mostly with oil. I haven't in years because, you know, I had kids and then that all went out the window. So this is me working with markers for the first time, and so there's a lot of things that I'm just picking up, I'm just figuring out, and I'm only just applying my color theory knowledge to things like this. You know, it's funny because I teach, like, you know, usually 6 to 12 or 13-year-olds how to do art, and I'm sitting here like not doing art. So, but if you guys see anything or have any ideas or even like to see me do something, go ahead and say it in the comments, because I want to challenge myself. I want to learn new things, so hit me up with that stuff, yo. Yeah, I know. And then right at the end, I was like, oh, what if there was somebody standing in the doorway? And so I like made that up, and I actually think it turned out pretty good. I mean, my husband knew what was going on, but he asked it in a way that he's like, is there someone in the doorway? So maybe he was like, I think that's what she's trying to do. I don't know. Anyway, so I hope you enjoyed this illustration and watching it, and I hope you look forward to the next one. It's gonna be awesome! I normally have a funny clip at the end of my kids doing something, but they're not here right now. So if you like this, subscribe. I'm doing a lot more, got a lot of sketches going, so subscribe. If you want to see more behind the scenes stuff, then check out my Patreon page. I got loads of stuff going on there, so check it out. Have a great day.